All right, guys, today we're talking about service intervals and why sometimes following what the manufacturer says might not be the best thing for you. Let's get into it. Here's what we're going to go over in this video. OEM recommendations versus our recommendations, where we are the same and where we are different. We're going to go over why there's a difference, and then we're going to give you what our recommendations are for service intervals. And we're going to show you some examples on some maintenance schedules, on some things that you really need to be on the lookout for when you're taking your vehicle in for service. Let's start with where we are the same as the OEM. What are some service items that we're going to be very consistent with what the OEM says? It's a pretty short list. It's spark plugs, because spark plugs are not going to wear out faster, based on, anything other than time and mileage, and those are going to be covered, basically mileage, and those are going to be covered under the...
You're good. There's a granddaughter behind you. Behind the tool cart right there.
Get over here. Goodness.
Noisy.
Hadn't seen you in like 2 weeks.
Okay, Mike needs you. A wire broke off.
On what?
Okay, so we got this remote control car, and he was unplugging it, and it got stuck. Then the wire broke.
Okay.
He has the pieces on him.
We can fix it.
Yeah.
All right, back to it. Spark plugs, again, basically mileage. We're going to follow OEM recommendations on those. And timing belts. Timing belts with a caveat, when they go over 100,000, so if it's a 105,000 mile timing belt, we're going to recommend it at 100. The key for us is when we do a timing belt job, we are going to guarantee that for whatever the interval is that the OE recommends. So if it's a 100,000 mile interval, we're guaranteeing the timing belt for 100,000 miles. So, we have a whole system for doing that. I think if they say do it at 60,000, we're guaranteeing at 60,000 miles, so on and so forth. But those are the two items that we're really going to follow the OEM's recommendations on. The items that we're not going to go on is pretty much everything else, right? So your filters, big one, and we're going to go over that in just a second. Something as simple as a cabin air filter or a regular air filter. We need to look at that and show you why you need to be very careful with those, especially if you're taking them into the dealer for service. We're talking about fluids, right? Your whether it be engine oil, transmission fluid, coolant, brake fluid, whatever it may be. What are the recommendations of the OE, and why are we different with them? And we are different from them. Shocks and struts are another one, right? Most manufacturers, I haven't seen a manufacturer that recommends shocks and struts. Well, when do you do them, right? So we have a recommendation for that. And it obviously is, because they don't recommend it, it's different from what we recommend. Let's go down the list. Take a look at a maintenance schedule. We've got 4 vehicles pulled up. Let's look at some maintenance schedules, and we're going to do this really quick. Let's just go through and let me show you where some pitfalls can be. We've got a 2018 Ram 1500. Notice it says Dodge or Ram truck. I'm just saying. So let's look. At 10,000 miles, let's just take something simple like an air filter. 10,000 miles, inspect. 20,000 miles, inspect. 30,000 miles, replace. Okay, so you're thinking, okay, that's great. Here's the key, and here's what can happen. And this happens a lot, especially with your German cars. If you take a BMW or a Mercedes back in to a dealership, they are really rigid on their services. So if you go in to, say, a Mercedes and you're getting service B done or whatever service it may be, they're going to look through it and go, okay, well, it calls for a cabin air filter, it calls for an air filter, it calls for this fluid, blah, blah, blah. And they're just doing them. They're not doing anything except for pulling those parts out and putting the new ones in, from our experience and what we've even seen online. So what happens if, like in this particular case, you go in and you get your air filter on this? I know this is a Dodge truck. I get it, 2 different brands. But what happens if you go in at 20,000 miles, they inspected your air filter and said, hey, you're driving in dusty conditions. Maybe you're in Texas somewhere and you're out in dusty conditions. That air filter needs to be done quite a bit. Well, at least Dodge is on here, Ram's on here saying inspect it, and clearly if it needs it, replace it. So what if they put it in 10,000 miles ago, but you don't need it now? But it says replace it at 30. A lot of dealerships will just do it. It says replace it. They just put a new one in it. So if they just put a new one in it and you just had it done, well, you just wasted money, right? The same thing goes for cabin air filters. You have cabin air filters that will not need to be done in some cases as often as they recommend it, and in some cases they'll need to be done more often. How do you know that? You've got to visually inspect these things. So rather than just saying, and that's what I'm talking about when I say there's some pitfalls in going into dealerships sometimes is, you want to be sure that they're looking out for you. You want to be sure they're not just going to be cookie cutter and saying, well, it calls for this. Let's pull up. I think, do we have we don't have a Mercedes pulled up. We had a BMW pulled up here. And here, look at this one. Here, let's take a look at this real quick. Look at this craziness. Air filter, 50,000 miles replaced. It doesn't even say inspect it. Right? It doesn't even say inspect it. Let's go to the next one. The next one's at 100. So now, I don't know. Do you go into it does not say to inspect that. Do you go in and they don't inspect it? Do they literally go 50,000 miles before they look at the air filter? Or are you going into a good dealership? Because I know there's going to be some good dealership techs that are watching this video right now. Go, oh no, I'm checking it every time. As you should. I mean, that's a good thing to do. But a lot of dealerships are just going to be, you go by what that thing says. You go by what that maintenance schedule says to do, and that's it. I'm just saying you might want to have a conversation when you're going in that, are you guys going to be visually inspecting these things, or are you just replacing them based off of what the maintenance schedule says? It needs to be a visual inspection on a lot of stuff, right?
So let's show them what's missing on that one right there.
Oh, on this, yeah. Well, okay. So this is a very short little list here, right? But if you notice, there's really, I don't even see brake fluid on here. Hang on, there's got to be brake fluid. I know BMW does brake fluid services.
Well, on BMW, it's just going to show it up on the dash when it needs brake fluid done.
Yes, that's true.
But
OEM indicator
there's no
schedules.
fluids on there whatsoever.
BMW based, it's indicator based there. So yes, so it's, again, you're right. It's going to be indicator based on this car, but notice that there's no transmission fluid, and there's not going to be any indicator based transmission fluid on that either.
Or coolant. Or any of that.
Yeah. So they basically, well, I know transmission fluid. Coolant maybe at some point it will. I don't know that I've ever seen one come up on there.
There's no coolant indicator base on a BMW.
Yeah. I've never seen one.
That's something just came
Transmission
out
fluid, we know 100% won't ever be on there, because BMW, I think, was the inventor of lifetime transmission fluid. And what is lifetime transmission fluid? Lifetime transmission fluid is the life of the transmission. I've said that. We've done videos on that to, crazy lengths. But again, why are we different? Well, we're going to get to that in a minute, because it might not pertain to every single person that comes in. And it might not pertain to you. You might be a person that is well suited to use their maintenance schedule to the T. Here is a Honda Odyssey 2012. They've got transmission fluid. Here it is at 60. Here it is at 30. Right? Let's go to a GM. Here's a Chevy truck, 2019. Transmission fluid. Right? Replace it. 45,000 miles, every 45,000 miles. So a lot of companies now are thinking that these fluids are not serviceable. They'll tell you, oh no, you don't have to service them. You need to be looking at the maintenance schedule on those things, because even the manufacturers, because of all the problems they're having with these components not living as long as they want them to live even, they're telling you, let's go ahead and get these fluids changed in these things. So, but again, if we go to that same exact vehicle and we go to coolant, you're going to see a whole bunch of check, 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 right? And then we get all the way up to 150,000 miles before it says replace it. 150,000 miles on coolant, right? Again, why are we going to do it differently? Let's go over that. Well, sometimes we're not different. Sometimes we follow the manufacturer's recommendations based on our client's use of the vehicle and what they plan to do with the vehicle. So if you've got a leased vehicle and you don't plan on purchasing that at the end of the lease, just follow the manufacturer's maintenance on it. There's no reason not to. You're going to save money doing that. That's why the manufacturers build the maintenance schedules the way they do. They don't build the maintenance schedules to make the vehicles last as long as humanly possible. They build the maintenance schedules to make the vehicle last long enough so people will feel value out of them, but not so expensive, I guess. They don't want the maintenance to be expensive, because people do factor that into purchasing a vehicle. If you go to buy a vehicle and it's going to be crazy expensive to maintain it, you might look at buying a different vehicle. manufacturers know this. So they try to lessen the cost of the maintenance on a vehicle as much as possible, not to the longevity of the vehicle, but to it actually makes the vehicle last a shorter amount of time. That's just the cut and dry of it. So where we would be the same as if somebody is not going to keep the vehicle. Where we're going to be different is if somebody comes in and they're like, and this is most of our clients, we're going to keep this vehicle a long time. Okay, we're going to customize this schedule for them and for that vehicle. So we know where we live, vehicles last pretty much as long as you want to drive them. Our environment is nice. We don't have salt, snow with salt, salt's not putting on the ground, all this kind of stuff. We don't have rust down here. So these vehicles will last a very long time. We're going to then customize the fluid services, right? Our fluid services, here's what we recommend. Every 30,000 miles, we're going to recommend a fluid services. Now, there are some vehicles where we know that transmissions are very, very problematic, and we make go a little earlier based on those cars, right? And then we have some people that are like, well, I'm only going to keep it for, let's say 150,000 miles, something like that. And then they go, do I have to do them every 30,000 miles? Like, well, you can do some things more often than not if you don't want to. Transmission service, we would highly recommend doing 30,000 miles. That's what we would recommend on that. But maybe you want to do your coolant every 50 or 60,000 miles. It's totally up to them at that point. But to make the vehicle last as long as humanly possible, we're going 30,000 miles on all the fluids, right? We're doing 100,000 miles on the shocks and struts. We're going to recommend visually inspecting the car every time it comes in. We're going to be looking at air filters and cabin air filters and brakes and front end work, right? All your suspension components, things like that. To be able to make sure that the client is aware of everything that the vehicle needs now and potentially might need in the future, right? Because we like people to be aware that things are coming up, right?
People are going to want to know the oil service interval, so that's 5,000 miles.
5,000 miles on oil service intervals. Yeah, we had to change that. We were 7,000 on full synthetic. Too many problems. These engines today, just too many problems. So 5,000 across the board. Pretty much everything's got full synthetic on it now. So good quality filter. And obviously good quality full synthetic oil, 5,000 mile intervals on that. The whole point of this video is this. Just because an OE manufacturer says this is when you should do something doesn't mean it's what's best for the vehicle or for you financially. It just means that they've come up with that at the end of the day, here's what they're trying to do. This is my theory on this. They're trying to get the car, depending on the vehicle line, they're trying to get the car to 100,000 miles as cheaply as possible when it comes to maintenance, and then get you into a new vehicle. With Mercedes, they're not even trying to get you to 100,000 miles. I mean, if you go and look at Mercedes and BMW and go follow some channels where they sell those cars, I mean, they're thinking that 50,000 miles is a lot of miles. I mean, they literally say that all the time when people are trading in these cars. So they're not even trying to get you to 100. They're just trying to make the first owner be as inexpensive as possible on maintenance, get them into a new vehicle. It's just that simple, which is why those cars don't hold their resale value very well, because those cars don't last because of the maintenance. If you do the maintenance on them properly, the way we think is properly, the vehicle will last a long time. And that's the point of this video. Just because a shop is recommending things more often than what the manufacturer says does not mean that they're trying to rip you off. Hopefully they're having a conversation with you. Hopefully they're talking to you about how long you plan on keeping the car and what your thoughts on the car are as far as longevity things. And if they are, and then they recommend things, it's to make the car last a long time, which is a good thing because it's way less money to maintain a vehicle than it is to replace a vehicle. All right, guys, that's it for this one. Hold on, don't leave yet. Hit that thumbs up and hit that subscribe button and that bell notification. Leave a comment down below. Do us a favor, share this video. We need to get it out there that just because the OE manufacturer doesn't tell you to do a certain maintenance on your car doesn't mean that it doesn't need to be done. We want to make these cars last a long time, and if you want that to happen and want to help your friends and your family, share this thing so they know it. Appreciate you watching. We'll see you in the next one.